Welcome to The Way Home with Laura Smith, the show that brings you wonderful guests, helpful advice, and uplifting stories. The Way Home. Live inspired. Here's your host, Laura Smith.
Well, I had an absolute wonderful time putting this show together this week, Christmas week, just a couple days before Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and there's something so magical about that. And I wanted it to be a sort of gift to you listening right now. I wanted it to have the sort of the tenor of it being a present for you. So I have two guests on, and I thought you would enjoy this. Bill Brooks is somebody that I heard at the Shipshewana Parade of Lights just recently. And when I heard him emceeing the program, I felt like I had stepped into a classic movie from times gone by. He has the most iconic, beautiful voice you can ever imagine. And so he is telling us a little bit about his vast, vast career in voiceovers and emceeing, radio, and beyond. But he's also doing some incredibly magical reciting for us of poems. So that is the first one. And then we have John Dinicola. He's the guy who wrote that song, believe it or not, with Frankie Previtt, The Time of Your Life, or Time of My Life, from Dirty Dancing. I mean, how iconic is that in terms of songwriting? Well, he wrote that, but he has been doing music ever since 1987, and he has put together a Christmas album. And so you're going to hear a little bit of some of the original music that's on there with some of the artists that he has gathered to do this beautiful album called Make a Joyful Noise. So as we come out on this eve of Christmas Eve, thank you so much for being a part of the Way Home family.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith.
He was born in an obscure village, the child of a peasant woman. He grew up in still another village, where he worked in a carpenter shop until he was 30. Then for 3 years he was an itinerant preacher. He never wrote a book. He never held an office. He never had a family or owned a house. He didn't go to college. He never visited a big city. He never traveled 200 miles from the place where he was born. He did none of those things one usually associates with greatness. He had no credentials but himself. He was only 33 when the tide of public opinion turned against him. His friends ran away. He was turned over to his enemies and went through the mockery of a trial. He was nailed to a cross between two thieves. While he was dying, his executioners gambled for his clothing, the only property he had on earth. When he was dead, he was laid in a borrowed grave through the pity of a friend. 20 centuries have come and gone, and today he is the central figure of the human race, and the leader of mankind's progress. All the armies that ever marched, all the navies that ever sailed, all the parliament that ever sat, and all the kings that ever reigned put together have not affected the life of man on earth as much as that one solitary life.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. I have goosebumps, and I've never heard that piece before.
Oh,
and
it's legendary.
It is legendary. And I would say that the voice you are hearing and the man I'm speaking with today is also legendary. Bill Brooks is here.
Thank
Voiceover
you.
artist, audiobook narrator, and producer. He's an MC, but he does so much. He's also a wonderful, he does the announcements for the Bluegate Theater in Shipshewana, Indiana. So we're very fortunate to have him close by here where we are. But Bill, I am telling you, I've been in the business myself since 1989. And when I heard you at the big Shipshewana, the Parade of Lights that they had at the beginning of the Christmas season about a month ago, I heard your voice, and it mesmerized me and everyone else. There were like 40,000 people there that night. and you were the MC, and you also sang, and I was so taken. It was like when I started in the business, there were people that I would hear and I would say, how could I ever be like that and be able to move people just with the sound of my voice? Well, you are one of them. You're a master at all that you do. Thank you for joining us on the way home today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Laura.
Really, what an iconic voice. I mean, how many thousands of, everything, film and TV, commercials, videos have you used your voice on over the years, and how many years have you been doing it?
Well, I would have no idea how many. I can just tell you that I'm a rare breed in that virtually every penny I've ever made in my life has been with my voice, either voiceovers, public speaking, preaching, singing, acting. So I'm extremely fortunate to have been able to accomplish that. And at my age now, senior citizen, and still going strong and still staying relevant. And I'm just grateful.
I'm looking at you now. Obviously, we're doing this on Zoom, but everyone is just hearing this over the radio. And you're sitting in this very cool studio. You've got about 5 screens going on over there, an iPad and an amazing microphone that's much cooler than mine, I would say. And it's wonderful to see. How old were you when you started doing work with your voice?
I started singing, of course, when I was just a child, because anytime you find a brook, you're going to find music. And so my family was singing in church as early as I can remember. I got my first radio job when I was 16 in my hometown of Carlsbad, New Mexico. And that started the career of using my voice at that point.
At 16?
Mm-hmm. At 16. Mm-hmm. And that
you were in radio. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you my age and tell you a little tidbit. That was 1966. We were still slip queuing reel-to-reel tape to play commercials. Most people living today don't even know what reel-to-reel tape is.
Right.
We didn't even have cart machines at that time. So
right,
that's
I know. When I started in radio, it was the same thing, and I started much later than you. But yes, I was producing all the commercials and stuff that I would voice. I would write them, then I would voice them, and then I would produce them, and it was all on reel-to-reel. And I remember, just loving the process. There was something so tactile about it. But yes, so you're talking a while ago, so you've been doing this pretty much your entire life. How did you get from Carlsbad to Shipshewana, Indiana?
Oh my goodness gracious. That would take us till tomorrow to talk about. I have traveled to over 90 countries, most of them multiple times. I've been to South Korea 27 times. I've been to Israel 17 times, I think it is. So I have spent my life traveling the world in ministry and entertainment both, and sometimes combined. And that brought us to 1989 when we created and launched a very popular musical in the life of Jesus called The Promise. We launched it in Texas in an outdoor amphitheater, and forward that down to into the 2000s, we had an opportunity to bring it here to Shipshewana. We played it for 4 years, for about 4 months at a time, and I got to know the people in Shipshewana. I fell in love with Shipshewana. I'm a Texan. My home is in Fort Worth. I still have a car, half my clothes, and a condo in Fort Worth. But I love Shipshewana. And so that's how I came here, just got to know the people when we came to do our show. That sounds very familiar to me. I grew up overseas most of my life and ended up 40 years in New York, and then came back here. I came back to the Elkhart, Bristol area because my parents had grown up here. And I was born here, although I hadn't been here lived here for like about 5 decades almost. So I know what you feel when you say,
how much you love it, and you had to stick once you got to Shipshewana. This area, the people, I try to describe it to my friends out east, and it's almost hard to say without sounding either sappy or like you're in some kind of Hallmark movie. But that's kind of how it feels sometimes, because the quality of the human beings here and the way they live their lives and their faith, that is just a huge part of their everyday life, which coming from New York, that wasn't even a thing at all.
I tell my friends and people I talk to, if you want to see real America, come to the Michiana LaGrange area. You're going to see real America, the way it ought to be.
Yeah, so, and it is, and it still is how it still is. And even though I've seen a lot of technological progress here, and a lot of manufacturing happens here, and a lot of the farmland is disappearing, but the people are still the salt of the earth, and there still are all those beautiful farms in LaGrange County, like you said, in Shipshewana, where it's basically an Amish town. And it's spectacularly beautiful and simple and gracious. It's just a beautiful way of life. And yeah, I feel just as honored as you do to live in this area. So, but when you said you've been to South Korea, you said 27 times?
27 times, I believe it is.
And what was that for? You said in the ministry or for entertainment?
A combination of both. In 2007, we took our musical The Promise to Seoul and performed it in the Jeomseol Olympic Stadium. It's a 160,000 seater. We built the largest set ever in history. It was 475 feet wide, 5 feet high, and we took 350 people from America to perform in 2007, and that locked us into doing a lot of things in Korea, and it just went back and forth for many years.
That's incredible. Are you still doing that performance, the Promise?
No. We closed it last week. It was the final performance last week in Texas. It is still being performed as a ministry all over the world, but we have dedicated that to this ministry that does it, and we just let them do it, and they bless a lot of people. We took the show to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and played it for 100,000 children between the ages of 4 and 14. And in the 7 performances we did, there were 20,000 kids came forward and gave their life to Christ.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing to me. And I watched that movie fairly recently, the one about, is it Greg Laurie's life and the Jesus Revolution. Mm-hmm. And it was talking more about, it was back in the 60s, and that there was this kind of Jesus revolution going on in the country. But people are saying, I have heard recently, that it's happening again. Do you see that?
It is. It's absolutely, it's happening again.
And do you think that it's just a sign of the times? It's because the world has gone so sideways in many ways that people, it's always the extremity of situations that bring us back to our core again. Do you think it's that? What do you think it is?
It is, to a great extent, I say that it's a sign of the times, but I also like to use the term the divine pendulum. Mm. It always swings back. And the pendulum had swung too far one way, and it's swinging back now. And that's what's happening.
And an awakening happens. Yeah. Wow. That is absolutely beautiful. I would love to see that production. Please tell the group now that's doing it to bring it to Shipshewana.
You can see it on YouTube.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
All you have to do is search for The Promise, Branson, 1996.
Okay.
And the first person you'll see is me.
Uh-huh.
And it was when I had hair.
Oh, 10 decades ago. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, listen.
I laughed a while ago when you mentioned how the technology has changed things. Look, I wanted to tell you, you know how I start my morning here in Shipshewana?
How?
I get up every morning and I make my coffee. I come in here into the broadcast side of my studio and I anchor news and traffic reports on, not at the same time. I move from place to place on 20 stations in 9 cities all over the United States from right here in Shipshewana, Indiana.
Oh, that is awesome. That is great. I love that.
I keep my radio itch scratched by doing that.
Yeah, because once you start it, that's it. You're done. You can't ever leave.
I've always said I started in radio and I'm going to go out in radio. So, yeah, because
that's wonderful.
radio.
And you're from that time in radio when people's voices, it meant something. You had to have the voice to be on radio. You couldn't get on there and not have good diction and not have some resonance to your voice, some gravitas. Yeah. Now it's kind of interesting. You hear some people and you go, my word.
Well, now.
But and I don't mean to be rude, but I'm just saying, you have what is the classic voice, the VOG, what they call the voice of God, and when, in big ceremonies and things like that, which is so classic. But I think, it's a little bit of a dying breed. I don't always hear this kind of voice coming from people.
It's also coming back. It had gone totally away, but it is coming back. There's now gradually more and more calls for what we call the big voice in the business.
Yes.
Nobody wanted it for a while, but now it's coming back.
That's good news. I love that. Now, I have to tell you, one of the most amazing moments for me when I went to this Shipshewana Parade of Lights, which, by the way, USA Today gave it, it came in second as the best small town parade in the country.
Not the small town.
It was just any
the best Christmas lighting parade in America. It was number 2 behind the parade in Detroit.
That's right. So that is really something. And you were the master of ceremonies for that entire thing. And it was just, you really just, it was like hot cocoa listening to you. But you sang a song with 2 other gentlemen at the end. And Bill Brooks, I don't know if I've ever heard anything so beautiful. I had tears in my eyes. I had chills. I couldn't figure it out. It was a little bit jazzy, a little bit classic, what was that song that you sang?
It is a song that was recorded and by my nephew. He was a contemporary Christian artist and had 5 or 6 number ones. And this song, Light of That City, was number 1 by Alan Asbury, my nephew. And that's where it came from. He didn't write it, but he was the one that had the number 1 on it. And it's just an unbelievable song. We did end every performance of The Promise over the past 20 years with that song.
Well, I think it is exquisite. And with your permission, at the very tail end of the program, I would like to play some of that for our audience, if we're allowed to do that. Because it moved me so. It moved me so. I felt like I was in heaven listening to that. And your sublime voice, honestly, I'm not trying to butter you up here, but that was honest to goodness. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but your voice was as clear and as crystal as a 20-year-old, and I was floored by it. It was just exquisite.
The other two guys that were singing with me was my brother, Randy Brooks.
Oh.
And Christian Anthony Ross. He's the big guy and he's an operatic tenor. And
wow.
The other two guys.
Just wow. And good. So we'll hear that at the end here so people can understand what it felt like to hear that. But if you were to, I mean, it must be really hard. You have literally, decades of your body of work that you've done with your
I
voice.
know what you're going to ask, and I already have the answer. Go ahead.
I won't ask it then. You just tell me.
What's the most memorable?
Yeah. What's your favorite?
My favorite experience in life, it is the highlight of my life, was, and I get emotional, actually, when I talk about this, was having the privilege and honor of working with Bob Hope for 7 years. That was an amazing experience to work with Mr. Hope.
What was he like? What was it about working with him that touched you so deeply?
What would you like for him to be like?
Avuncular, kind, a real man's man, but somebody who could relate to anybody.
He was that and more. Absolutely. Can I tell you a story?
Please.
We had done a show on, I produced his charity events. And we had done a charity event in the Beaumont, Texas area. And the next day, on Sunday morning, I was with him in the limousine, taking him to his airplane to fly back home to California. And we're driving down the road, and it's about 11:30 in the morning, and he says, Brooks, I think I'd like to get a sandwich before I get on the plane. So I pulled the glass back and talked to the driver and asked him if there was some place ahead. And it was while Bennigan's was still open. And he said, there's a Bennigan's ahead. I said, is that okay? And Mr. Hope said, sure. So we pulled into the Bennigan's parking lot at 11:30 in the morning. All the churches just were getting out. The place was packed. There was a big line. And we pulled up, and I opened the door and started to get out, turned back and asked him what he wanted. And he grabbed me by the belt loop and pulled me back in. He said, nope, I'm going in. And he went into Bennigan's that Sunday morning. He sat at the bar, ordered a hamburger, a Coke, and French fries. And he sat there for an hour and a half. And he signed an autograph, took a bite, took a picture, took a drink for an hour and a half, was never flustered, never uncomfortable. He was at perfect ease and peace. That was Bob Hope.
Oh, wonderful. And that's exactly how every one of us would like to think of him as, and what you're doing is verifying for us that indeed that is who he was. Mm-hmm. What a beautiful, did you know that, so there was a very famous theater in downtown Elkhart, Indiana, and I'm trying to remember the name of it now. It's gone. They took it down, but it was an exquisite hotel and performance theater, and apparently Bob Hope did the first performance there.
Wow.
I have to find the name of that hotel. But yeah, it was, for me, I thought, I mean, really? In our hometown of Elkhart here? So, yeah, I mean, he was such a presence in life. I think, I'm being little and watching him on TV. For some reason, I felt like he was part of my family. I thought he was an uncle or something, He just had that ability to touch everybody in the world, and how beautiful that is. How fortunate for him that he knew you as well, somebody of such great talent.
Thank you. But it was my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm sure. I am sure. Well, because I wanted this show today to be more of an offering, a gift to my listeners, would you mind so much if I asked you to read something else, and then we'll finish and we'll go out on your nephew's beautiful song? Okay. Would you read us the Visit from St. Nick, or better known as 'Twas the Night Before Christmas?
A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement Clark Moore. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver, so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name, now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away all, as dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled! His dimples, how merry! His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like a down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
Thank you. It never gets old.
No.
I still feel like I'm 5 when I'm hearing that. Boy, you just captured the beauty of that. It's wonderful. And, that was truly a gift. Thank you. I know my listeners enjoyed it so much. And, wow, you talk about truly, you have the interpretation skills of a master. And, indeed, you are. Bill Brooks, a national treasure and international treasure from all that we learned about you and your massive career in the business between radio, voiceovers, emceeing, and theater, music, all of it, and the ministry as well. I just think this has been such a glorious, wonderful opportunity and absolutely perfect for my show before Christmas. I thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. And I got to get a plug in here. Everyone come to see us in Shipshewana. When you're around, ask somebody, where's Bill with a hat? Because I've always got a hat on.
Oh, do you? Okay, because you were wearing a top hat for the Parade of Lights at Shipshewana. Yes, but you know what? I don't think you need anything to bring attention to you, because the moment they hear your voice, they know it's Bill Brooks. You can see more about his career and find out about how to maybe hire him for a project of your own. Go to ibrooks.com. That's the letter I, brooks.com. And we're going to go out on that beautiful song. One more time, the name of it.
Light of That City.
Light of That City. Merry Christmas to you, Bill. Thank you so much.
Merry Christmas to you, Laura.
This is such a treat.
Span of stars overhead as we walk this road, while this darkness remains, I will bear your load, and together we will tend the seed He's sown as we walk along the road to that city. And on that day we will sing, holy, holy. And on that day we'll bow down in the light. And then we'll rise and turn our eyes to the one who's the light of that city.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith.
A joyful noise rings out loud. Both young and old move to its sound.
Everyone feels magic in the air, a celebration everywhere.
Still making a friend, share your sweet smile, and all God's children come alive. 'Cause darling, it is Christmas time. Christmas comes but once a year. Sleigh bells ring and children cheer. Rumor has it, they did just say, old Saint Nick is on his way. It's the time to take a chance with the one you love on a new romance. Tell them just how much you care, and let the fun begin at Christmas time.
A few years ago, gosh, I'm trying to remember now. It must have been 2 or 3 years ago. I had the great good fortune and so much fun interviewing some award-winning musicians, songwriters that you know their music so well. It's unforgettable. Let's put it that way. If you ever saw the movie Dirty Dancing, which I know you did, then you heard the songs Time of My Life and Hungry Eyes, and they were written by, co-written by two gentlemen, John Dinicola and Frankie Previtt. And John is back because John has never stopped making award-winning music, and he's got so many projects always in the fire that this one coming out right now, and with that song that we just heard at Christmas time featuring Cassidy Aladdin on vocals and John, is a beautiful holiday classic songs and original collection of Christmas songs, Christmas music, and absolutely beautiful. And I'm very happy to have you back. It's so good. Thanks, John.
Well, thank you for having me back, Laura.
So tell us about, you have your own private label, correct? It's called OMAD?
OMAD Records. So it comes from a Charles Bukowski book called Tales of Ordinary Madness. And when in my younger year, I read a lot of Charles Bukowski, and I was in a band called Ordinary Madness with a couple of other Bukowski fans. And we somehow that just became OMAD, shortened to OMAD from Ordinary Madness. And that's it. Yes, OMAD.
Got it. So it's not like you're a nomad without the N. Okay.
No, sometimes it feels like that.
Well, I mean, you've been bringing joy to people with your music for many, many, many decades, and still in, that must feel so great that you're still in the business. you're still doing, what your passion is. Are you doing only music now, or are you just doing a bunch of different things?
No, I'm really just all music. I have a recording studio, which, Laura, you can see behind me. The audience can't, but I have a beautiful recording studio that I put in the barn in upstate New York about 4 years ago. And for the most part, that's all I do. I come out here and I just make records for our label. The only other thing is a documentary on one of the artists, Peter Lewis, whose mom is Loretta Young, and his daughter, Arwen Lewis, is another artist on the label. So both father and daughter are on the label. And it's a documentary about Arwen coming to Peter at age 22 and saying, teach me guitar and songwriting, and at 22. and that's it's called Fall on You, which was a title that of one of Peter's famous songs. And so it falls on her.
Yeah, and she's going to be on one of the songs as we finish our time together here. A beautiful voice and haunting lyrics is lovely. And so, if you look back at when did Dirty Dancing come out? I'm trying to date myself here, but it was in the 70s?
87.
87. Okay, it feels like the 70s.
August 87.
Okay, August of 1980. Was that sort of an overnight turning you in from did that rock your world in such a big way? And I remember you telling me a couple of years ago kind of how that started, because how do you get a song picked for a film? There must be so many people vying for that opportunity. How did you get it?
Yeah, it was as Emile Ardolino, who directed the film, said to me, it was one of those things. Just everything fell into place. It was a small Vestron Films it was their first film. It was a tiny company and a small budget. And, all I can say is they listened to 150 songs. That's what they tell me. And they were getting ready to film that famous scene at the end. They were filming out of sequence. They were going to film that first. And they still didn't have a song. They were dancing to a Lionel Richie song. And that song came on, and everybody just looked at each other and said, that's the song. So I have to just say it's fate.
It's an amazing song, though, really. I've had the time of my life. You hear those first few bars, and you're transported again, and there's something so aspirational about it, and yet also romantic and beautiful in every way. And you just can't ever forget the amazing Patrick Swayze, of course. And so it's just, it is iconic. It's one of those songs. I know we say that about a lot of things, but you really did have the iconic song in the film. And how much fun is that? But to be doing music all these decades later, that must be just great for you. I know a lot of musicians that are still, I just had Judy Collins on a couple of weeks ago, and at 85, she's touring. She's singing like a crystal bird. I mean, just a beautiful voice, just a brilliant lady. And I think, these are people who were born to do what they do. And so you're one of those, and and then what you get to do now is you find these other new artists and you highlight them. What do you look for when it comes to choosing, like for this album now, Make a Joyful Noise of your holiday music? What are you looking for when you select somebody for your album?
For this, it's basically all the artists and then some on the record label. These are all artists that I put records out with that are on the label. And I just, like in May, I said, guys, I have an idea. Let's do a Christmas record. And I said, you can either do a cover song or write new song. And everybody went at it. I mean, I was a little surprised at how, I'm not surprised at how good it is, because they're all great artists, but that 11 songs were written for this record and there were just 2 covers, which is nice. And I think the reason I wanted to do it was because, every Christmas I pull out the same LPs and the same songs. And, they're as beautiful and gorgeous as they all are. You've heard them so many times. I'm always looking for Christmas music to put on. And this record, you can just put it on while you're cooking or while you're in, opening gifts. It has a real wonderful sort of eclectic vibe to it. Everybody has got their own cool vibe on it, from a from a very folk traditional type of thing to a irreverent, what's Christmas, Grinchy type of thing. So it runs the gamut. So I don't know what possessed me other than the what I just said. I'm always looking for Christmas music, and a Christmas record you can pull out every year to try to put it out again. It's not like, hey, we premiered your album, now let's do another one. You're going to bring that same, record back at the holiday time. So it's a sort of a no-brainer.
Right. And there's obviously great musicianship, which you get involved with that, being one yourself. And you look for that, I imagine, and the quality of the vocals. Cassidy Ladden, she sang backup on Taylor Swift music. And, these are people pretty prodigious in their own right. And so it's nice that you've put them together, because we might not have all gotten to hear them on their own doing solo work or with you in a duet like we heard on the first song. So the next one that we're going to go out on is, now tell us again about Arwen. She is the daughter.
Well, actually, I don't think, are we doing Baby So Beautiful, or are we doing Joyful Noise?
Joyful Noise.
Okay, that's Zonder and myself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, my goodness. I'm getting confused because I was listening to all of them today when I was hanging out, and I was going through all of them. So, all right. So you want to do you and Zonder, and I love the guitar on that.
Yeah, Zonder came here into the studio. He happens to live up the Hollow. We live on Chambers Hall. He lives right up the Hollow. And Zonder's been around, played with a lot of different people. He had his own band, the Elevators. And then he played with a bunch of blues guys out of Texas. And so he's a journeyman for sure. And he came in here, John, I have this idea for the Christmas song, for the Christmas album. Put down the guitar part and his vocal and left. And I just got inspired, and I pulled out the piano, I pulled out the Hammond organ, I pulled out the conga drums, I pulled out the Wurlitzer, and I just went to town and sang back up. And the result is we couldn't be happier, really. It's a soulful, it's a little bit of a 70s soulful vibe.
Exactly.
Almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, John Dinicola, I really appreciate this. I wanted today's show to just be kind of a gift to the listeners, to be able to discover new music and hear wonderful voices and beautiful artists, who, and getting to know them a little bit. And so you were picked today for that, and I hope you don't mind. And I want everyone to hear your album, Make a Joyful Noise, a collection of new and classic holiday tunes. And for all you do for musicians and for all of us who get to listen to it, thank you so much. And Merry Christmas.
Yep, thanks. If you hear it and you want to buy it, omadrecords.com, OMAD-records.com.
Perfect. omadrecords.com.
LP and CD.
Both. Okay, perfect. Again, Merry Christmas to you. And here we're going to go out on Joyful Noise. Zonder Kennedy and John Dinicola.
Make a joyful noise. Man, it's Christmas. We're living in a world that's moving way too fast. Try to take some time to let the good things last. Make a joyful noise.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith. Here's Laura.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am ever in the festive mood, getting ready for Christmas, and I've absolutely loved my guest today, and I hope you have as well. But of course, it wouldn't be a show without the guy who brings us joy all year round, good news stories, and so much, also a golden voice. His name is Jim Cleefield. Thank you so much for being here for not only 5 years and hundreds of shows, but especially during this time of year. It's great to be with you.
And counting, that's for sure. Well, we all know this is the most wonderful time of the year, right? Christmas time, that's true. A time of giving, time of sharing, but also a time of kindness, too. And I'll tell you why. There's this couple in East Idaho I want to talk to you about that really personifies that kindness part of this for the holidays. Their name, Kent and Marlene. Now, they're not just a couple. They are hard of hearing. They are deaf. Not only are they hard of hearing, but also they've been experiencing some hardships. But they've been able to push this aside in some way, particularly because of the holiday season. I'll tell you why. Because they are such giving people. This is in East Idaho now. And they've been doing this for a long time. They want to uplift people, like we talk about on the show, uplifting. That's a word that we use a lot. And one example of that is that they've helped, for example, a 97-year-old woman who's also deaf. They kind of help clean her house every Monday, once a week, so that she could live in a nice, clean home. That's just one small sample size of a lot of the good things that they've done to give back to other people. Well, guess what? Something very special happened to them. It's being paid back in many different ways that maybe they couldn't have imagined. Unbeknownst to them, there is a secret Santa in their life. His name is Nate. He happens to be a local journalist. He was dressed as Santa, and I guess just came to their house one day with a camera and was all set and ready to go, and they were surprised to see him. Well, he not only came in a Santa suit, but he came bearing gifts. Get this. This is what these people gave them. For example, there was $1,000 in gas gift cards, $2,000 in grocery gift cards for food for them, and to make things even better for them, how about a $2,000 check to help them with their financial needs? That's $5,000 in cash and gift cards they get, all because they've been kind to so many people throughout the years and through all the tough things. Because, I mean, they lost a job during the holiday season. I've been on that side of the equation. I know exactly how it feels, but it just made them feel so much better. There were hugs all around, and that, it just really shows just how happy they were and really appreciative for what they've done, because it just goes to show this, that when you spread random acts of kindness like this, you get it back in a way by paying it forward, not only during the holiday season, but all year round.
That's beautiful. That is really beautiful. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's so interesting. When you give, not only do you get back usually the same amount or even more, but you also get this unbelievable feeling. It's like endorphins. It's like serotonin for your brain. It's happiness. The act of giving just sparks something within the giver. And they say it's scientifically traceable, when you give and you offer things to people, that what you get in return and how good you feel. Thank you for that. What else do you have?
And then I want to tell you about the story of a gentleman. He's no longer with us here, but it's a wonderful story, a holiday time story about Alton Thacker. He was not only a barber for many, many years, but for several years he was also a toy maker on the side. You might say he was an elf unto himself. And I'll tell you why. Because he would make these kinds of wooden toys, wooden car toys, to give these to kids all over the world who are just really down to their luck, to kind of make their Christmases a little bit brighter. Well, it just snowballed into something really, really special, into a foundation, the Tiny Tim Foundation for Kids. And this, not only making these wooden toys, which was just kind of a hobby since 1996, so this has been almost, 30 years now that this happened. And it grew to like 100,000 toys a year, 100,000 car toys to get to these kids in a total of 110 countries, not just ours. And when he passed, thankfully, his daughter Ashley has been keeping his legacy alive and growing this foundation, and been able to really help these kids in so many places just to keep his legacy alive, because, not just in creating these toys, but really to bring much happiness to these children who really, just like a just wonderful little gift. And again, it's the Tiny Tim Foundation for Kids, and their example, their inspiration for this was a kid from Mexico. I guess that's where they named Tiny Tim. And this gentleman, Alton, had looked at his story, and he was in a wheelchair and was just so touched by him that inspired him to do this kind of foundation, and it was named the Tiny Tim Foundation. So it's really grown exponentially, and I'm sure that Ashley will continue this for many years to come and make more kids just happier, not only beyond the Christmas season, but for years to come.
Love that. Very beautiful. And boy, wouldn't you love to have one of those wooden toys? Those sort of blast from
That's
the
a
past.
lot of toys. Yeah, that's a lot of car toys.
Yeah, it is. But when they're handmade by somebody, there's just something so special about that. You never ever want to give it away or get rid of it because it's timeless. Well, I thank you for that, for always going out and finding those beautiful, uplifting, warm stories. And Bob Small, you behind the controls there all year long as you do. You are my special elf. You're maybe not on the shelf, but on the board.
But he's top shelf. He's top shelf.
He is top shelf.
Yeah. Oh, by the way.
One.
Yeah.
Oh, he is. I think you both are. And I want to thank you because I know that people who listen to my program, they often talk about how lovely everybody is, everybody in the group. And it really makes me feel good because, well, it's nothing but love, laughter, and inspiration on a weekly basis. And, of course, good technical prowess by all of you. So thank you so much. I wish you both a Merry, Merry Christmas.
You too, Elvin.
And a Happy New Year. All right, I won't be the musical guest on today's show. No, we'll stop it right there. But to everyone listening, God bless you. May you have the most beautiful Christmas when we remember the time of our Savior's birth and truly get the meaning of it by sharing it with those that we love and knowing that we are loved ourselves by God, whether we're with others or not. Merry, Merry Christmas from The Way Home. I'm Laura Smith.
Podcasts by Federated Media.